We got this story from Politico. Trump slams Harris on Iran, says Biden administration is leading us to the brink of World War III. It was his latest instance of using current events to slam the vice president just one day after turning a visit to a community ravaged by a Hurricane Helene into a political jab. I don't respect the writing, Politico. Trump is not wrong. We are looking at World War III. Every day it's getting worse. Some in Europe are already saying we are there. Now, the big picture here, my friends, is not so much to talk about foreign policy, because I know you're interested in the election. And the question is, how will this impact November? We are a month out from this election. Early voting has already begun. And PA, it's a swing state. Y'all need to go out there. You got to vote. You got to do the groundwork. The question is this. Just yesterday, Israel got slammed by around 200 missiles, much of their defense system intercepted. Some of these Iranian missiles made contact slamming into Israel. I don't believe anyone was hurt. So they're saying it was largely a failure, but they still launched a missile strike on Israel. Israel's invaded Lebanon. This conflict is getting out of hand. Where is our leadership? Donald Trump is right to criticize them. I believe under a Trump administration, we would not be seeing this because people fear Donald Trump. Yeah, Tim Walz said he's fickle. Yeah, I think so. And that's kind of scary. You can say something like, will Trump do it? Won't? I don't know. He could flip on a dime. He could say, you know what? Peace is off. You've crossed the line. And then what do we deal with? I mean, Trump famously was sending in a retaliatory strike on Iran and then stopped at the last minute and said, you know what? I changed my mind. I don't think 500 people should die because they shot down a drone. And it was like, whew, you never know what he's going to do, good or bad. And I think he made a lot of good moves. But the big question is right now is how will Israel affect the election? And I'm going to show you the polls. I genuinely believe, much to the chagrin of many people, many in this country who are critical of Israel or outright anti-Israel, the majority of this country supports Israel. And you may disagree with that. And many say it's because of propaganda. It's because of AIPAC, whatever that may be. But I'm going to show you the polls and we're going to talk about political ramifications. From Politico. Former President Donald Trump used Iran's missile attack on Israel to slam Vice President Harris, blasting her and Joe Biden as grossly incompetent and threatening that they are leading us to the brink of World War III. Quote, the two incompetent people running our country, and I don't think they're even running it, are leading us to the brink of World War III, a war like no other. Trump told a raucous crowd in Wanaki, Wisconsin. Wanaki? How do you say that? Claiming without evidence the nation's first and second in command are not, in fact, in charge of the administration. What is this writing? What do you do? He's being facetious. He's being critical by saying they're not even doing their jobs. It's just such ridiculous fake news. Just these journalists, man. I can write. I'll tell you what he's saying. OK, they're saying without evidence, they're not actually in charge of the administration. What? When Trump said Hillary acid washed her server, NBC News is like, false. She didn't use a corrosive substance on her computer. She used a program. It's like no one genuinely thought that's what Trump meant. I mean, I have to wonder if this is all just written by AI, if like the Democratic Party is just a robot who can't understand human emotion. Harris's campaign spokesperson, Morgan Finkelstein, declined to comment. During the speech, advertised as focusing on economics and manufacturing, Trump repeatedly threatened that the evolving situation in the Middle East could result in devastating global war and blamed Iran's attack on Biden and Harris, whom he said had made the U.S. adversary very rich in a very short period. Trump also repeated a misleading claim about a September 2023 prisoner exchange between the U.S. and Iran, which saw the two countries swap detainees in Qatar on the eve of that year's United Nations General Assembly. Quote, if they have somebody who is kidnapped, it's always $6 billion. Whoever heard of that, Trump said. Somebody gets like $4,000. One of the conditions of the exchange was that the U.S. would unfreeze $6 billion in frozen Iranian assets that were accrued as a result of oil sales to South Korea that occurred at a time when sanctions against Tehran were lifted. Trump said on Tuesday that money flooded Iran with American cash, allowing it to fund its militant U.S.-designated terrorist proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah. But the Biden administration has defended that provision of the deal in the face of Republican attacks, arguing it did not constitute the U.S. giving Iran $6 billion for the use of weapons. Officials at the time noted that the assets were held in a monitored account and could only be used to purchase food and medicine with those funds. A ridiculous and absurd notion. Let me break it down for you. We did not in the United States give Iran $6 billion. A lot of Republicans were saying that not the case. $6 billion in oil sales were frozen. The U.S. unfroze the $6 billion. It is true, as far as I know, that they said, yes, but you can only use it for general supplies, medicine. But let's not be stupid here, okay? Let's say that I got $100 to my name and I got to buy food every day to eat. And I do. Then you come to me and say, I'm going to give you $100 that, we're going to put another $100 in your account, but you can only use that for food. I then say, okay, well, that $100 I already had, I can do whatever I want with. Get it? If you unfreeze $6 billion, their food budget on the other side goes to zero. They say, okay, we're cleared. Let's say Iran has $1 billion in cash and they're struggling to buy food. You give them $6 billion for food, they got $1 billion clean to do whatever they want with. So it's no surprise now we're seeing Lebanon launching missile barrage after missile barrage. I'm sorry, Hezbollah is. Hamas launching their attack, and now Iran launching their attacks. They got money to do it. Well, let's talk about where we're at. I'm not a big fan of Israel's policies. I'm not a big fan of our involvement with Israel, but I think the struggle we have here is most Americans support Israel. Most members of Congress do. A lot of people don't like it. I don't know what to tell you, but Israel is not like Ukraine. It's not like Afghanistan. If we are to withdraw in the immediate, like we did with Afghanistan, we are talking about massive escalation of war. I don't have any good answers for you, my friends, but that is true. Israel vows to target Iran's oil within days in revenge for missile barrage, as Tehran threatens to strike the entire infrastructure of Netanyahu's insane regime and warns U.S. not to intervene amid mounting World War III fears. Israel's military is preparing a significant retaliation to a shocking attack by Iran. Reports suggest Israel, which has vowed to strike powerfully in response to Iran, could go after the country's oil facilities. Former Israeli intelligence official and regional analyst Avi Melamed told Mail Online the Iranian strike was likely to provoke a significant counterstrike, warning that Israel's response this time will likely be broader and less restrained than it was in the wake of Iran's unprecedented direct strike in April. But Iran's Armed Forces Joint Chief of Staff, General Mohammad Bagheri, said this morning that the Revolutionary Guard was prepared both defensively and offensively to repeat its missile attack with multiplied intensity should Israel seek retribution. Quote, if the Zionist regime that has gone insane is not contained by America and Europe and intends to continue such crimes or do anything against our sovereignty or territorial integrity, tonight's operation will be repeated with much higher magnitude, and we will hit all of their infrastructure. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi, I'm pronouncing that wrong for sure, also declared that Tehran has warned the U.S. to withdraw from this matter and not to intervene. But the U.S. has vowed to stand with its regional ally Israel, with National Security Advisor Jake Sullivan telling reporters at the White House, we have made clear that there will be consequences, severe consequences for this attack, and we will work with Israel to make the case. Now let's talk about where this leads us politically. Is the attack yesterday going to result in a shift in favor of Donald Trump? The answer is yes. First, I've already seen many people say that this is a disgrace. This was the straw breaking the camel's back. I'm surprised, too, because I'd have thought that the anti-Israel protests would have got many of these pro-Israel Democrats and moderates to line up behind the Republicans. We saw these big protests at universities where you get, pro-Palestine and even pro-Hamas. I know people don't want to believe it, but it's true. Pro-Hamas protesters. Well, I think the reality is this. There are a lot of people who support Israel, and they don't care that people are protesting it. They don't care that Democrats feel that way, or they genuinely believe that the Democrats were still going to do the right thing regardless of the activist base. I saw a handful of tweets the other day where after the rockets, you can see in video the missiles striking Israeli territory, hitting, blowing up. I saw angry tweets from people saying this is the final straw. I can't believe the Biden administration is allowing this. Iran is attacking our allies. I don't want to be involved in foreign conflict. I want America to be safe, secure. I want our workers to get what they need. We've got a hurricane disaster zone across the South right now. North Carolina and Georgia are suffering. Why are we sending hundreds of billions overseas to Ukraine, billions to Israel, to Taiwan, to all these countries, Sudan, Afghanistan, etc.? Our own people, our neighbors, our brothers, our sisters are suffering right now. It grinds my gears. I recognize that Israel's not Ukraine. I say Ukraine, I don't care. You're not. Look, why? Israel's a little different. Israel's a longstanding ally, and the catastrophe and escalation in the Middle East is terrifying as to what would happen if we do an immediate, just we cut them off completely. I would be in favor of over a period of time figuring out how we withdraw our funding to Israel. They're allowed to maintain their presence without being flattened or wiped out. It's not easy. I wish I had a good answer. I don't. But civics polling shows us how people feel. Should the United States be more involved or less involved in solving problems overseas? 54% say less involved. 26% say neither more nor less. Only 13% think we should be more involved in these issues. Now, I got to tell you, the number dropped when Russia invaded Ukraine, but it barely lasted. 2 months later, it went right back to where it was, and it's remained stable. The American people do not want us involved in these foreign excursions or whatever you'd call them. What people actually want is for our borders to be secure, our jobs to be brought back, and not to face the brink of World War III. Mirror.co.uk. World War III fears as Iran attack could see is Israel retaliate against their nuclear program. I don't want to see this. I want to see peace. And I genuinely believe there's going to be a massive impact on the election based on what we're seeing. Take a look at this. We've got Pew Research. Majority in U.S. say Israel has valid reasons for fighting. Fewer say the same about Hamas. 57% express some sympathy for both Israelis and Palestinians. Check this out. There's a lot of polls we can break down on this one, but take a look at this. Americans' view of why, how Israel and Hamas are fighting. Okay, why are they fighting? The question is, Israel's reasons for fighting Hamas are, we have 58% saying somewhat valid or completely valid. Hamas's reasons for fighting Israel are, and you've got a larger percentage, you've only got 22% saying valid, which is still kind of wild, but you end up with 49% saying not at all valid or not too valid, which is kind of a weird way to explain it. The way Israel is carrying out its response to the October 7th attack is, the majority say somewhat acceptable or completely acceptable. That's wild. That we're looking at 38%. While you still, actually, it's tied, it looks like. You've got a split 38-38. So forgive me, I was incorrect. But take a look at this. The way Hamas carried out the October 7th attack was only 4% agree with Hamas. And I can't believe that number is that high. So what we can see is clear. You've got people saying, I don't like Israel's military operations, how they're handling it, but it's split down the middle. But most people are like, but they're right to do something. And this is from back in March. I got more for you, my friends, and I know a lot of people don't like it. From the Melman Group, they said 62% of voters have a favorable view of Israel, while just 24% have an unfavorable opinion. Nearly identical to the 62% favorable, 25% unfavorable recorded in December of 2023. Voters in 7 battleground states, this is from August of 2024, are even more positive, with 67% expressing favorable views of Israel and just 17% unfavorable. However, look at this. A large majority reject cuts in security assistance for Israel. The question is, do you think the security assistance that the U.S. provides to Israel for self-defense should be increased, decreased, or kept at its current level? 60% either said keep it the same or increase it. 23% said decrease. 17% said they don't know. Here's a story from the Jerusalem Post from 2023. This is before October 7th. It's fascinating. Americans support Israel despite disapproval of Netanyahu's government. A 2-year study from Pew Research on American sentiments towards Israel has been released with some interesting outcomes. They say Americans have a generally positive view towards Israel. Again, this is before the Hamas October 7th massacre. In the study conducted during 2022 and 23, there was some difference of opinion depending on the age group and affiliation of the 2022 survey. Americans over 65 have a 69% favorable view of Israel, compared to 49% between age 30 and 49, which drops to 41% in the under 30 age bracket. Republicans are at 71%. Democrats were at 44%. Now, that was interesting, right? October 7th happens. American support for Israel soars after Hamas slaughter. It does look like, as the older generation begins to move on, the U.S. support for Israel will wane. But as of right now, the most important voting bloc being older voters, I tell you this, 2-1, Americans support Israel. I am not telling you to. I am not saying that Israel is good or better otherwise. This is not a point about what you think about Israel. It's a point about the American view of it. and what that translates to politically. I'm in West Virginia. West Virginia News reports. West Virginia congressional representatives reiterate support for Israel amid attack from Iran. This is from just yesterday. In fact, Riley Moore, who we're friends, he skateboards here. He's been here a couple times. He's skated at some of our parks. We're big fans as well. He's going to be representing us. And we know he's going to do right by this country. And he said he supports Israel. Yeah, outright. And I got to tell you, a lot of people, you've got to stop acting like you're right about everything on this one, okay? You're allowed to not like Israel, please. Once again, people act like because I'm saying this, I'm telling them they're not allowed to criticize a country or whatever. That's absurd. But I tell people this. I was talking to someone just this past weekend, and I said, look, AIPAC has influence because people like Israel. Now, it could be inverse that, AIPAC's lobbying has resulted in more support for Israel. That's the point. But their lobbying would not be effective unless there was support for Israel in the first place. There are a lot of PACs that are deeply unpopular. That's just a reality. And there's a lot of them with massive resources. I'm not saying AIPAC is a tiny influence. They're massive. They're powerful. But people in this country support it. And you know what I hear? Oh, well, people don't really support. If they really knew, well, maybe that's the case, man. But all that matters is this. 2-1 people are going to vote to support Israel. And so when you see these things, it matters. And that's why the Democrats are in trouble. Because many of them don't like Israel. They don't support Israel. But Jewish voters in the United States, they tend to vote Democrat. They're going to probably start walking away from the Democratic Party because, well, Jewish voters like Israel. And it's not even a question overtly about whether you want Israel to be a sovereign Jewish state or Zionism or anything like that. It's that run-of-the-mill Americans are like, I don't know, we've been allies for generations. We shouldn't just leave them to get flattened. And it's that simple. I certainly think criticism of any country and their military operations are always allowed. And Israel ain't no saint when it comes to the conflict that's happening in Gaza and the settlements in the West Bank. But the fact of the matter is, while we can have those conversations, if you walk down the street in a major city or in this country, you're going to find typically 2-1 people are going to say, yeah, we should support Israel. In fact, a large portion wanting to increase, 23% saying they want to increase support to Israel. Now, with all that being said, once again, comment about what your criticisms of Israel are. I don't care. I'm not telling you not to have those criticisms. I know people are really passionate about this, but you should understand that with this attack on Israel, support for Trump is likely going to improve. People who are Democrats or moderates are looking at this, and 2-1, they're going to say, I've had enough. Now, the people who don't like Israel, probably going to vote Democrat for obvious reasons. And the moderates who are like, either diehard Zionist or, Jewish Democrats, I think you're going to see a shift towards Trump. And that's why Trump is attacking the Harris-Biden administration on this issue, because it matters to people. People like the country. For whatever reason, I don't know, for whatever reason, call it whatever you want, but it's true. Now, my concern beyond this is not so much, I know, look, people are going to vote for Donald Trump. It's going to sway people for sure. And this gives Republicans a boon. I'm concerned about World War III. I don't care about, in the long term, these other countries. I'm not Israel, okay? You and I, we're Americans. Some of you may be in other countries. I get it. But we're here in America. I want my border secure. I want families to make it. I want, J.D. Vance told this story last night on the debate stage, that he knew a woman who got an abortion because she felt she was in an abusive relationship and felt like she could not properly raise a child and wouldn't have the support she needed. I want that support to exist. I want people to know you don't need to have an abortion. You can have those children. You will have a family, and we will make America great. That's what I want to happen. And I wonder why it is that right now, when there's these terrifying stories, man, J.D. Vance mentioned this too. Grandparents with their 6-year-old on a rooftop in the floods and the roof collapses. The last photo ever seen of them. That shouldn't be happening. But we put $200 billion in developing weapons and strategies and military and PMCs for Ukraine. Man, now I understand that when we spend $250 billion, largely it's into the U.S. economy. Weapons manufacturing, resources, supplies. But we could do the same thing in protecting our home. And it's just laughably absurd that we're having this conversation. That right now, North Carolina, I'm seeing these videos. What people don't understand about these floods, when the water goes down, there's 2 feet of mud. I saw a photo of a truck, and it's just buried in 2 feet of mud because the floodwaters come in. The dirt and the particulates are dispersed by the water. And then as the water drains, the vehicles sink down, and then the particulates come together and form this mud encasing homes and vehicles, and it's buried. We need help for the people in North Carolina and Georgia. Trump went down there. I respect it. Kamala and Biden did not. I wish they would. I hate to criticize them on this matter because I just want people to get the help they need. But come on, guys. They did not go down. I know they're having phone calls. I know they're signing paperwork. I know they're allocating funds. But they should be there to help properly manage this and assuage people's fears. Let them know that there's a reason why we're doing these jobs. There's a reason why we have these politicians in office, and they're going to be there for you when you need it most. Instead, it's Ukraine. Instead, it's Israel. And even having this conversation about Israel breaks my heart because we should be having a bigger conversation about how the hurricane's going to impact the election. But I know people are doing their best outside of all of that to help those in need in these disaster zones. Helene was a flash that people didn't see coming, and the damage, it hooked around and it slammed into the East Coast, and a lot of people didn't see it coming. I just wish that $250 billion that we've dumped in Ukraine went to, I don't know, preparing for disasters in the United States, securing our border. Heck, make public works jobs. I'm not a big fan of that in the long run, but at $250 billion, can we say, I don't know, how about we fix our roads? How about we create high-speed rail? How about we give child tax credits? Here's my proposal. Once you have 3 kids, if you have 3 kids and you're married, as long as you're married, no income tax. 0. Yeah, you're going to pay property tax and you're going to pay sales tax and all that, but no income tax. Keep all that money. Pay for your kids. We're going to make America better off, right? I hope for the best. I am worried about what happens with the escalation of this conflict. It's going to impact the election. So be prepared for as bad as this could get, my friends. And I hope and I pray that a Trump administration can find peace. Because looking at how things are going right now, I don't see it. I really don't. So I wish the best for everybody. Stay tuned. We got more coming. Smash the like button. Subscribe to this channel. Share the show with all your friends. You know, look, YouTube buries this morning show, and it's rough. But if everybody who watched shared this show, we'd be the biggest news show on YouTube. And if you appreciate the work that we do, even if you don't always agree, please consider sharing the show, subscribing to this channel. Please consider becoming a member at timcast.com because that's the only way we sustain and maintain all of this. And you can pick up our new song, Coming Home, getcominghome.com. Please buy the song on iTunes. We'll send a message to Hollywood, to the entertainment industry, that songs with meaning matter and that people care about what's happening in this country. Thanks for hanging out. For everybody else, we're going to go to your super chats now. Next segment will be up at 4 p.m.